taḍpara தாளினில் தங்கி தண்டலர் மண்டுக மானேன் சிற்பத நத்தேர் ணுṇmala raļiyā ceydiḍil laydiyuṇ ணaṭṭatū pōdiல் ணாணuyir viṭṭā ணaṭṭatū ணாகumuண் paļiyē veṟpuru varuṇa virikadi roḷiyē viṇṇiṉu nuṇṇaruḻ veḷiyē.
In the previous 5 videos in this series, I talked about each of the first 5 verses of Arunachala Padigam, the 11 verses to Arunachala composed by Bhagavan. In this video I'm going to be talking about the 6th verse. There is a continuity of bhava or sentiment, feeling flowing throughout these verses. Up to and including this verse, the general feeling that Bhagavan is depicting is of someone who is so close to the final goal of dissolution of ego, but is not quite there. So that theme is there throughout these verses, and it comes out in this verse also. In this verse, Bhagavan addresses Arunachala in 3 ways. At the beginning of the verse, he addresses, the very first word of the verse is taṟpara. That is a vocative case form of taḍpara, which is a Tamil form of taḍpara, a Sanskrit compound of 2 words. Tat, which is a neuter third person singular pronoun that means it, this or that, and that is often used to refer to Brahman, as in tatvamasi, that you are, that refers to, or it you are, that the tat there refers to Brahman. Likewise in this taḍpara it refers to Brahman. The other word in this compound is para, which means beyond, transcendent, ultimate or supreme. So taḍpara is, Bhagavan is using this term to refer to Arunachala as the ultimate, supreme and transcendent reality. So, as I said, in the very first word of the first line, he addresses Arunachala as taḍpara. But he also addresses Arunachala in two separate addresses in the final 2 sentences. In the final 2 sentences, in the last line, the whole of the last line consists of 2 addresses to Arunachala. In the first of those, he addresses Arunachala as veṟpuru aruna virikadi roļiyē. That means a light of red spreading rays in the form of a hill. Here, veṟpuru means, roļiyē is a light. Veṟpuru means a hill or a mountain. Aruna, here he's using, obviously he's talking about Arunachala, but Aruna by itself is, here he's using it as an adjective form of Arunam, which is a Tamil form of the Sanskrit word Aruna, which means the sun, dawn or red, particularly the colour of dawn, the red colour of dawn. But it can also mean the sun or dawn, but in this case it means red, that red colour of dawn. Viri means spreading, expanding, unfolding or opening. Kadi means ray, beam, light, sunlight or sun. And Oli means it means light. So he's addressing Arunachala as literally it means light or red spreading rays in the form of a hill. But the words he uses, particularly this viri, that spreading means expanding, unfolding, opening. So it's the what he's particularly referring to here is Arunachala at the dawn of self-knowledge. That is when the ego is finally consumed in the absolute clarity of self-awareness. There seems to be a fresh dawn of self-knowledge. Actually, just like the sun never actually rises or sets, it's only from the perspective of ourselves here on earth that the sun seems to rise and set. Actually, the sun is, relatively speaking, the sun is stationary. It is the earth that is going round and creating this illusion of a setting and rising sun. So also the when the ego rises, it clouds over the light of pure self-awareness, and thereby that is analogous to the setting of the sun. And when the ego is finally dissolved in the light of pure self-awareness, that light of pure self-awareness seems to shine forth anew. That is a dawn. So it's very much that the light of dawn that Bhagavan is referring to here in this address. Aruna virikadi roļiyē means light of red spreading rays, or red. When the sun when the sun rises in the morning, it's like the opening of a flower. It's the light bursts forth along with the sun, and this light is in the form of a hill, because he's referring, of course, to Arunachala. So this address is very much in fitting with this bhava. Bhagavan is singing from the perspective of a devotee who has very nearly surrendered himself, but not yet completely surrendered, who feels there's nothing more he can do. It's entirely up to God just to do the final blow and to kill him, the ego. So this is the first of the two phrases of address in the final line. The other address is viṇṇiṉu nuṇṇaruḻ veḷiyē. Vin means sky or heaven or space. Nun means is an adjective form of nuṇmē, which is an abstract noun that means minuteness, subtlety, sharpness or acuteness. So here nun means subtle. So viṇṇiṉu nun means subtler than the space or than the sky. Aruṇ veḷiyē. Aruṇ means grace, mercy, favor, benevolence. Veļiyē means space, particularly the vast open space, particularly in the sense of a vast open space. So he's here addressing Arunachala as the space of grace, but subtler than the space. Here, subtler than the space. By implication, we can mean obviously the space of grace is subtler than the physical space. It's also subtler than the mental space. All mental phenomena appear in a certain space. Dreams appear in a certain space. This world appears in a certain space. Even the physical space appears in a certain space. That space is what is called the chittakasa, chittakasa, the space of mind. So the space of grace is the chittakasa, the space of pure awareness. That is subtler than the space of mind, which in turn is subtler than the physical space. So Bhagavan is referring to Arunachala as that space of grace. That is also significant here, because when the sun of self-knowledge dawns, consuming the ego in its bright spreading rays, Bhagavan says in verse 27, I think, of Aksharamulai, Sakalam virikadi kadiroliyena mana jalajamalati Arunachala. He refers to Arunachala as Sakalam virikadi kadiroliyena, the sun of bright rays, but swallow everything. Because when the dawn of when self-knowledge, when the Atmajnana shines forth, it will consume the ego, and since everything else exists only in the view of ego, when ego is consumed, everything is consumed. And the same thing he says in the first verse of Arunachala Pancharatnam. Arulnirevana amrakkadale virikadi raļiyābum virungum. Arunagiri, that the Arunagiri whose bright rays swallow everything. So when the dawn of self-knowledge arises, it swallows everything, and what then remains is the empty space. Well, it's not really empty space, but the pure, clear space of grace, which is subtler than the mind space, which in turn is subtler than the physical space. There's a verse in Anmavidya, the song on Atmavidya, in which he says he refers to Vinadiya Vilangum, Kanadiya Poricum. He's referring to the true self-knowledge as the space in which the mind space, or the eye to the mind eye, which is the eye that sees the physical space, and it's also the space in which the mind space exists, in which the physical space exists. So that though he just says space of grace subtler than space, it is that idea that he's referring to. It's subtler than the mind space, which is the mind that sees everything else. Subtler than the mind space, what is contained within the mind space is the physical space. So it's subtler than the physical space. The grossest of all spaces is the physical space. Subtler than that is the mind space in which it is contained. Subtler than that is the space of grace, or the space of pure awareness in which everything is contained. But when we experience the space of pure awareness, because everything will have been swallowed by that perfect, absolute clarity of self-awareness, nothing will remain to be seen except ourselves, who are that space. So these are the ways in which Bhagavan addresses Arunachala in this verse. That's the first word of the first line and the two halves of the last line. So what he actually, so setting that aside, coming to the actual body of the verse, in the first sentence, as I say, he addresses Arunachala as taṟpara, the supreme reality, and he says, taṟpara nāḷun tāḷiṉiṛ tangi tandu ala maṇḍukam ānain. Literally that means taṟpara, supreme reality, nāḷun tāḷiṉiṛ tangi. Though I have been always, well, it's not even though, remaining always at your feet, nāḷun tal, even your is not there, but it's implied. Tal means feet. Nāḷun literally means every day or daily, but it implies always. So always remaining at your feet. Tandu ala, that is actually ala tandu, if we rearrange it in the natural order. Ala means a flower, particularly a lotus in this, well, in this context it refers to a lotus. Tandu means the stem. Maṇḍuka means frog. Ānain, I have been. So the literal meaning of the sentence is supreme reality, remaining at your feet, I have been a frog at the stem of a lotus. What that implies is, though I have been remaining always at your feet, I have been like a frog clinging to the stem of a lotus. The frog cannot enjoy the sweet honey of the lotus flower. It just clings to the it may cling to the stem of the lotus, but it doesn't get the the sweet honey, the benefit of the lotus. Here, Bhagavan uses the word maṇḍuka, which is a poetic abbreviation of maṇḍuka, which is a Sanskrit verb meaning frog. So he's describing his state. That, as I say, he takes the bhava of a devotee, but he's expressing the feeling of a devotee who is so close, who is dedicated his whole life to Arunachala. He wants nothing else other than Arunachala. Yet he's not yet completely been. He's not yet completely surrendered himself, because we can go only so far, and finally it is for grace to swallow us. That is the sentiment expressed here. And as I say, this is, though Bhagavan isn't so explicit here as he is in Aksharamala, underlying these verses is that nayaki nayaka bhava, the bhava of a girl who has been abducted by her lover and is waiting for the love to be consummated. The consummation of the love is an analogy for the dissolution of the ego, the killing of the ego. So Bhagavan is praying as if he's like a girl who's been abducted, but then the love hasn't been consummated. She's still clinging to her lover, but he's not consummating the love. So she's like a frog clinging to a stem of a lotus, not enjoying the sweet honey of union with him. Then that's the first line. In the second line, indirectly he makes a prayer. Ciṟpada naṭṭrēn. Naṭṭrēn means naḻ, the fine honey, and ciṟpada naṭṭrēn ṉuṇmala raļiyāc ceydiḍi viṭṭā. That means it starts off with a conditional clause. Ceydiḍi means if you do, you is implied there, or if you do, or if you make. If you make me raļiyāc, Ali is a bee. If you make me become a bee, if you make me as a bee, mala ali means a flower bee. If you make me as a flower bee, means drinking. Naṭṭrēn means fine honey. Ciṛpada is chit means pure awareness, and pada can mean feet, but here it means state. Or we can also take it of we can also take both meanings of pada. Pada can mean padam, feet. It can also mean padam, the state. So your state of awareness. Often in devotional literature, like in the first verse, Bhagavan says, though I've been remaining always at your feet. He doesn't actually say though, but it's implied though, that remaining always at your feet, tāḻ. What are the feet of God, the feet of Arunachala, the feet of the Lord? It is the ciṛpada, the state of awareness. That his feet are the pure awareness that is always shining in our heart as eye. So the conditional clause here is, if you make me become a flower bee, drinking the fine honey of your state of awareness, viṭṭā, there will be salvation. That means I will be saved. There will be salvation for me. Here Bhagavan very, very clearly implies that in order to attain salvation, liberation, mukti, whatever you want to call it, viṭṭā can also mean cessation, the cessation of ego. In order to attain that, what do we have to do? We have to drink the fine honey of the state of awareness. That is, it's so long as we are turning our attention outwards towards the world, we cannot enjoy that fine honey. But only when we turn our attention back within to be aware only of the awareness that we actually are, aware of nothing but awareness, in other words, the state of pure self-awareness, that is drinking the honey of his state of awareness. That is the means. That is the means to salvation. It's only the pure awareness that is always shining in our heart as I, that alone can save us. So only when we turn within to drink the sweet nectar, the sweet honey of that pure awareness that's always shining in our heart as I, is their liberation. Liberation is nothing but that state of experiencing and enjoying the pure awareness which is always shining in our heart. Why are we enjoying it? Because it's that awareness is itself. It is Sat Chit Ananda. It is not only Chit awareness, it is also Sat, that which actually exists, and it is Ananda, the state of supreme, perfect, absolute, infinite happiness. So if you make me, so these first two lines, first he says, supreme reality, though I've been remaining always at your feet, I've been like a frog clinging to the stem of a lotus. If you make me a flower bee, drinking the fine honey of your state of awareness, there will be salvation for me. That is, indirectly, if we interpret this in the language of the Nayaka Baba, you brought me to your feet. I'm clinging to your feet, like a frog clinging to the stem of a lotus. But I haven't yet, my love for you hasn't yet been consummated by the destruction of my ego. So if you make me into a flower bee, able to, a frog cannot drink the honey in the lotus. But if you make me into a flower bee and enable me to drink that honey, then finally there will be salvation. My love for you will be consummated, will be fulfilled. I'll be fully satisfied. That is the implication. And then he continues in the same bhava in the third line. Undran pada pōdi ṇaṇuyir viṭṭā ṇaṭṭatū ahum paṛiyē. What that means is, if I leave this life, viṭṭā, ṇaṇuyir viṭṭā, if I leave this life, after implication, after constantly remaining like a frog at the flower of your divine feet, literally without bringing in that, if I leave this life at the flower of your divine feet, is all that he actually says there. Undran pada pōdi. Pōdi means a flower. Pōdi means at or in your feet, in the flower. Pada pōdi. Pada means here is referring to feet, whereas in the previous verse it referred more to a state. Here it refers more to feet. So the flower of your divine feet. Nāḻ means good feet, excellent feet, fine feet. Implication, divine feet. So if I leave this life after constantly remaining like a frog at the flower of your feet, after constantly remaining like a frog, is the implication when we connect it with the first line. Then what he says is, paṛiyē means blame, slander, fault, guilt, or shame. Here we can take it as shame. Paṛiyē means your shame, or we can take it as shame for you. ṇaṭṭatū. Natta means standing, fixed, or established. It's an adjective form of nattam, which is a noun meaning erectness or uprightness, like a pillar. is derived from a verb, nadu, which means to plant or set up a pillar or mast or fix or establish. So ṇaṭṭatū means a standing column, or a standing, you can also take it as a monument, a standing monument of shame. It will be a standing monument of shame for you. That is, if after me clinging like a frog to the stem of, like a frog clinging to the stem of a lotus, I've been clinging to your feet till now. But if in this state, if I leave this life while still clinging to your feet, that means without having enjoyed the nectar of your state of awareness, it will be a standing column it will be a standing monument of shame for you, ignominy for you. This thing about if I leave, here he says ṉaṇuyir viṭṭā, if I leave life. This is similar to in the first verse. He says ibudul vidil. What he says there is, in the first verse he says, what will be my state if I leave this body after pining and suffering intensely in this dark and miserable world? That's the whole of the first sentence of the first verse is, if you, who by your grace took possession of me, are not gracious, giving me sight of you, what will be my state if I leave this body after pining and suffering intensely in this dark and miserable world? So until we are able to see Arunachala as it really is, see Arunachala as our own real nature, the state of awareness, ciṟpada, until we can enjoy that honey of awareness, which is the honey of the state of awareness, which is the true form of Arunachala. Until we can enjoy that, we can cling to his feet, but what more can we do? We are suffering, pining for him. So if we, in this state, if I leave this body, if I leave this life, the life of this body, implying, it will be a standing column of shame for you. So, as in the earlier verses, Bhagavan is very much expressing the feeling of someone who has followed this path, who has done all the self-investigation that he or she can, has surrendered as much as he can, but the final, how much can we surrender ourselves? There's still an I trying to surrender itself. So finally it is our own real nature that has to shine forth and swallow this ego. That is the implication here. So that is that analogy of that depiction of pure self-awareness shining forth is alluded to in the last line when he addresses Arunachala as light of spreading rays in the form of a hill. That's of red spreading rays, that is the red of dawn. So like the sun rising in the dawn, you have to rise and swallow me. Then only I'll be able to enjoy that, finally drink the sweet honey of your state of awareness, which is your, that is what your feet are. Your feet is nothing but that state of awareness. So as I said earlier, these verses, this is pure love poetry, and it's love of the very highest kind. It's the purest love is love is not about what we can get from the one person we love. Love is about what we can give to the person we love. So the purest form of love is to give ourselves entirely, and we can give ourselves entirely. Ourself means this ego, the one who is who we now, what we now experience as ourselves. By giving ourselves this ego entirely to God, that is the ultimate, the supreme love. And who is God? God is nothing but our own self, who's always shining in our heart as I. The
space, Arul Veli, the space of grace, that is subtler than physical space and subtler even than the mind space. That is the real form of God. God is that ciṟpada, the state of awareness. So, there's so much allegory is woven into these. Allegory and love are woven together in such a beautiful way in these verses. It's very difficult to express in English the beauty of the Tamil verses, but at least I can to some extent explain the ideas. But the love that Bhagavan is expressing in these verses, no words can express that. We cannot express it, we cannot explain it by intellect. We can only feel it in our heart by experiencing that same love ourselves. The more we long for Arunachala, the more we long for Arunachala means nothing but what is Arunachala? Nothing but the state of destruction of ego. That is our real nature, our natural state, the state of egolessness. That is Arunachala. So the more we long for that, the more we will be able to experience the love that Bhagavan is expressing in these verses, and the more we will see the beauty and the richness of these verses. The poetry of pure love, that is all of Arunachala Stuti Panchakam is poetry of pure love, and this is one of the finest gems, among the 5 gems, this is such a beautiful one. Each is beautiful in its own way. We can't compare one with the other, but this is very, very special.